Good morning. My name is Dr. Amado Mendoza, Dr. PT from A&M Therapy, and we have here a young man, Terry Rush. Would it be okay for us to be able to videotape this and share it?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay,
Yes,
fantastic. Now, I grew up in the Philippines, and we have an utmost respect for the American military. And on Memorial Day weekend, we want to share an incredible story, okay? And Mr. Rush has an incredible story to share. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your life, first of all, Mr. Rush?
Sure. Let's see, I started out worshiping pilots because my father was a pilot in World War
Wonderful.
II.
Amazing.
And my parents divorced when I was very young, 3 years old, but he was always in my mind. He was my hero.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got older, I started learning to fly myself.
Right.
And,
In those days, the pilots were Army, right?
Yeah, Army
was
Air
no-
Corps. He flew B-17 bombers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started flying by taking lessons at a little local airport.
Mm-hmm.
They had a flight school.
Wow.
And I came up that way, and then I got my mechanic's license first.
Mm-hmm.
Because I figured if I couldn't make it as a pilot, I could at least work on the airplane.
Right, right.
Yeah, so I ended up going to work for a company up in the mountains of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And there I was a mechanic, but I also got my instructor's license while I was there.
Right.
From
So
them.
it's not like all of a sudden you flew when you were 18, correct?
No,
Took a
no,
while?
it was a long slog.
All right.
It took a while because I'd get some money up and then have to stop.
That's
Fly
right.
the money till the money's gone, then save up some
Right.
more money.
Right.
But
Right.
it was worth it. It worked out in the end.
Wonderful.
And then eventually I got a job with a regional airline out of Philadelphia, and I flew with that company and loved it. We flew from Washington D.C. to Bangor, Maine, and a lot of points in
A
between.
lot of commercials or more like flying
It was all
air cargo.
we were feeding at the time. We were feeding at what was called Allegheny Airlines.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania again.
Yeah, Allegheny Airlines, and we filled seats for U.S. Air.
Okay.
And Allegheny became U.S. Air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, we were a feeder for that company, and then we got bought out in 1986 by Pan American.
Okay.
They were looking for more feed into their base in New York,
Right.
so they bought us, and we actually were given seniority numbers at Pan Am.
Mm-hmm.
So they were taking 3 of us a month to the main carrier, go through school on the 727 and come out of school as a 727 co-pilot. And for most of us, that was our dream come true. We thought we'd retire as a commuter pilot, but
Right.
here we are, we're flying a big jet.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And that ended up being my favorite jet, was 727.
Okay.
And then I was with Pan Am until they were bought by Delta in 1991.
Wow.
They gave all of us, had all of us come over. We had to go through the interview process and everything. Not everybody made it, but we went through and then ended up at Delta.
Okay.
And I ended up spending my last 14 years of my airline career. You're forced out at 60 at that time.
Okay.
And
Were you like a captain for
Yeah.
Delta? Okay.
Yeah, I was
Incredible.
a captain on several different airplanes. And anyway, it was a wonderful career. It really was. I enjoyed all of it. And as I look back on it, all my favorite times were the first airline, that little commuter with 120
right.
pilots.
Right. Right.
Versus the
big
Delta
planes.
with 4,000 pilots
That's
or
right.
whatever.
So
So
what we were trying to do was explain to people the things that happen. I call it miracles, correct?
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, my wife and I attended a air show in Brevard County. So I was watching this air show, and I thought, wow, this is an amazing thing, seeing all these incredible planes. And one of them was a World War II plane. And I was in Cocoa Beach at that time, and this is a couple of years ago, right? And I thought, well, this plane is flying awfully low on the water, and I thought, wow, that's a cool technique. So again, circle back. Now it's March the 24th, May 24th today.
Yeah.
May 24th, 2024. So Mr. Rush was sharing a story about an event, and we didn't know that our lives came together at some point, right? So Mr. Rush was flying the plane that I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the Patrick Air Force Base in Cocoa Beach Air Show.
Right.
All right. So you were flying what type of plane?
It was called a TBM Avenger.
TBM Avenger.
World War II, built by Grumman.
Okay.
It had a 3-man crew, a pilot, a bomb aimer, bombardier, and a turret gunner. It had a rear turret on it. And as a matter of fact, that's the type airplane that George Bush 41 flew during World War II.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, that was the airplane that I was flying in the air show.
Okay. Now, when my wife and I came home that day, we saw a story the next day that apparently there's a plane that ended up crashing. Now, what the miracle is, no one died during that crash. And I thought, wow, this is an incredible event because there was a lot of surfers on the water in Cocoa Beach and in Satellite Beach at the time. And this pilot must have done an incredible job trying to keep that plane from hitting civilians. And guess who the pilot is? This young man. So describe what happened to that plane.
Well, the thing was that we would do 3 passes in front of the crowd at Cocoa Beach. And on my first pass, the air boss, that's the fellow who directs an air show from the ground. He's telling you different information you have to have. Anyway, he tells me that I have a little bit of smoke coming out of the airplane. Well, that's not normal.
And this is your third pass, right?
No, this is my
second.
coming around getting ready for my second.
Okay.
So as I came in front of him again, I figured I'm going to go to Patrick Air Force Base.
Okay.
Because I was headed south anyway now.
Right.
And I told him I'm going to knock it off, which is the code expression you use for I'm going to quit.
Okay.
So I said, I'll knock it off and head to Patrick. And at this time, the airplane was just shaking and vibrating, smoke coming out of it. And I couldn't see the smoke because it was going below my wing.
Right. And you were the only pilot.
Yeah, there's a single, during an air show, you can only have essential crew on board. You can't have any passengers.
Okay.
But anyway, that's a good thing. And anyway, there's things that you study as you're learning to fly and as you come through your career. You're always reading stories about ditching.
Okay.
I didn't crash. I actually ditched the airplane. It was intentional arrival into the water.
Right. And again, this is amazing because again, there was a story about one other pilot, Scully, that had a commercial plane that he landed in New York.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible story of a pilot that managed to save the lives of many people.
150 people.
And what were your thoughts when you were about to ditch, and how do you control this plane so it doesn't hit anyone?
Well, I had to keep my speed up. Speed is what saves you. You can't let it slow down. And the tendency is, it gets closer, you get to an obstacle. In this case, it was water. The tendency might be to pull back and you have to just keep it going, keep the airspeed. Anyway, I had read, I knew what I was going to do. The engine was coming apart. I could tell that by how it was reacting. I had no power. I had more power out of my little lawnmower at home than this airplane was developing.
Wow.
So I knew I was not going to make Patrick.
Wow. Well, how do you remain calm when something like that happens?
You're very busy.
You're very busy. You're just focused on the job,
100%
right?
focused on fly the airplane. Just fly the airplane. Keep flying until whatever happens.
Now, what I remember in that event is there's multiple planes in the area as well, so you had to kind of coordinate with all the other planes.
Right.
Right? Do you remember any of the...
I was part of a flight of 3 aircraft, World War II aircraft that were out there, and we were all from the Valiant Air Command Museum in Titusville.
Yes.
And so the airplane leading the 3 of us, he came around behind. I was tail end Charlie. I was
one of my favorite planes there, right? One of the
C-47.
C-47.
C-47 transport plane. We had the TBM, and we had a B-25 bomber in the formation. And
so you were radioing them.
I was talking to him and to the air boss, and I headed toward Patrick, but I knew I wasn't going to make it shortly after I decided to go there.
Right.
And
so you're already trying to go low, right?
It was at 200 feet was our altitude that we were going to fly past the crowd.
Right.
that's already way low.
Mhm.
When you lose an engine, that's way
Mhm.
too low. You want to have a lot of altitude to be able to figure things out. I didn't have altitude, so it was a quick deal. But a few things I know from 25,000 hours plus
Mhm.
of flying, things that just happen to you, just naturally do things. You have muscle memory,
Right.
whatever.
Intuitiveness.
Yes,
Right?
it's like you can stretch my leg and you know exactly what's going on inside my
And
body.
we're doing physical therapy for Mr. Rush,
Right.
so I appreciate that. And you're feeling better, of course. But,
Yeah, you're doing
all
a
right.
good job.
Now, so you finally were going to descend, and you were
Mhm.
looking at the surfers,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
can
you-
see the surfers were slightly off to my right, and I wasn't going to land in the surf anyway.
right, of
That's
course,
a bad deal.
right.
And the deal with ditching is you land with the waves. As the waves are going like this, you want
Okay.
to be going with them.
Okay.
You don't want to go through them, otherwise it could flip the airplane.
Oh, yes, okay.
So that's paralleling the beach. Well, that's where the surfers were. Well, I
Right.
turned out to
Right.
over the ocean, and they were off to my right. So I knew
Right.
there was no damage of me flipping,
Right.
and I just put it in the surf, and that's what I did.
Right.
I have a seaplane rating as well, so I flew
Okay.
seaplanes.
Now, the air traffic control in Patrick Air Force Base was well
They were ready
aware.
for me. I was
Okay.
talking. They were tuned into our
Very
same
calm.
frequency.
Mhm.
And they asked if I could come in on a certain runway, and I said no, I wouldn't be able to make it all the way around. This is
Wow.
our initial conversation. The runway that was lined up perfectly for me had a B-52 sitting there. That was part of the air show.
So you're not about to crash
I'm
on
not
it?
about to land on a B-52.
Wow.
So, and I wouldn't have made it anyway.
So how
at
long
this
does it
point.
take before that plane sinks? Because you have to make a decision of being able to save yourself.
Oh yeah, well, luckily what happened was I was in a shallow area, and
Right.
the airplane. I think what happened was that the propeller had stopped the course, and the blade was pointing down. It's a
Okay.
3-bladed propeller, and
Okay.
one of the blades was pointing down, and I think the airplane drifted in towards was
Mhm.
being pushed in towards shore,
Right.
and I
right.
think the prop hit a sandbar because it swung the airplane
Oh my
around.
gosh. All the
And the
things that
airplane
have to
back.
happen have to happen. Because
Yeah.
remember, it was a really bad day before that.
Yeah.
So the weather was
Weather,
fantastic.
yeah, it
on
had
that
beautiful
day.
weather. Everything was great. Yeah.
And you can look it up. This is actually in
There's
history
a YouTube.
books. Yeah, there's a
It's
YouTube
on YouTube
channel.
all the time when they say
Oh,
10
amazing.
craziest things, 10
Right.
crashes or something. And it does bother me when a lot of commentators will say it was a crash. No, this was a controlled.
Controlled, yes.
Ditching
You
in the
were
water.
very controlled, and it's
Yeah.
amazing you were able to save those lives.
Yeah,
So how
well-
long did it take before you said, okay,
Mhm.
I landed the plane safely. How do I get out of this?
Well, I had the canopy back already as
Mhm.
part of preparation for making
Okay.
the landing.
Okay.
Because the canopy slides back and forth both sides. So
Okay.
I had opened those canopies because worst thing in the world, you're going to get trapped in the airplane. So I had
Right.
the canopies open so I knew I could get out.
So you have like,
And harness. Yeah,
Harness?
that's the only injury I got was
All
I
right.
got bruised in
On
here
the-
and here from
okay.
the shoulder harness.
okay, okay.
That saved me from.
Do you have any lifesavers? You're a good swimmer. I mean, you walked out.
Oh, I've only had to swim 10 feet. My
Okay.
feet touch bottom. I was
Oh,
like, oh, okay.
What an incredible feeling.
Yeah.
So as you got out there, I'm
Yeah.
sure that it was an amazing experience. Like, oh, wait a second, I survived this.
Yeah, well, I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to be fine.
So you were in Satellite Beach at
Confident.
that time, right?
Yeah,
So-
I was in Satellite Beach in front of the officer, the old officer.
you were actually close enough to
Give me a beer.
So, what was the experience like? As you walked out, you had this like weird experience. You said, like surreal
Yeah.
experience.
People were acting very strange. I'm walking out. I'm walking up on the beach, and I asked somebody to grab my parachute, and walking up, and the police came right down to me and said,
Uh-huh.
"We got to take you to EMT and
Wow.
examine you."
Hmm.
And I had people coming up and touching me.
Right, like somehow
Walk
you
up
were a
like,
ghost, right?
Touch me on the. What are you doing? It
Right.
was weird. I don't know why they did it.
So the pilots have to go through a decompression.
Yeah, they
Reporting.
took all my vitals
Right.
and just
Make
to make sure everything was
Okay.
all right, and I told them I didn't need to go to the
Incredible.
hospital.
Right. And how many stories have you told besides this one? I'm sure they had to interview you.
One.
One. I feel blessed that we're able to share this story
Yeah.
because it's a miracle as far as I'm concerned. And we witnessed this event in
Yeah.
Cocoa Beach. So
It got seen. I had friends overseas
Mhm.
that called us up and said, "Hey, was that you by any chance?"
ah.
And oh God, we figured because this was the second event I had in a TBM event. First one caught fire.
Wow.
That one was bad.
So you can survive these incidents. You have to
Yeah.
have some faith, of course,
Faith and
I believe that.
fly the airplane.
And it's an incredible Memorial Day weekend story. So I honor all the veterans, and I respect that we are here to serve the veterans. And I thank you all for listening to the story. Mr. Rush, thank you very much for sharing the
Thank you.
story. I'm blessed to be part of your recovery.
Well, I'm
and
glad I
rehab.
discovered you. for
Well, I
sure.
appreciate that. And share this story. It's a positive story of surviving.
If I
And-
may add one thing,
Sure.
I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. So
Oh, wonderful. So that's what. In it, yes,
you
we
learn
are
how to
serving
keep
military,
your cool.
right? Hoorah!
Hoorah. We didn't do that when I was in.
No.
That's something happened after. I was in
Oh,
during Vietnam, and
okay.
I never heard anybody say
I
hoorah
appreciate
until
that.
years after I got out.
So, what is your take on your motivational story or inspirational word for the new generation when something goes wrong?
Mhm.
How do you handle that?
If something goes wrong and it's happening,
Right.
go with it.
Go with it.
I used to tell all my students, because I have 40 years as a flight instructor,
Right.
maybe more.
Don't panic. Right.
Don't panic.
Right.
Stay calm. Do your procedures.
Okay.
They were designed by people who had been in the same circumstance many times.
Okay.
So do your procedures and stay calm.
All right. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
And happy Memorial Day weekend.
Same to you.
God bless you. Peace.